Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Join me today. We're going to discuss the balkanization of the United States and why we are headed this way, I think, for inevitable breakup. So friends, this is boringly repeatable throughout history, that certain nations, when they reach certain points along their path, and no, it's just not the shelf life of 250 years, there are certain criteria that have to be met, wherein domestic tranquility is so damaged by immigration, number one, two, foreign influence, and then three, consolidation of power in the cities and the oppression of the outside areas, the rural areas. All of this is predictable, it's all happened before, and it's all going to happen again. In the United States, the reason why I think we're headed for balkanization, not a proper civil war, see, let's define our terms here. Civil war here is you've got at least two factions warring for control of the same central government. We could end up having that, especially if the Democrats, through a BS mechanism, attempt to overthrow a duly elected official through BS, trumped up charges, no pun intended. I think you very well could see a civil war for that, especially if the commander-in-chief were to call up the militia. And you guys know that I'm not a Trump bot. I've been extremely critical of him when he deserves it. If you're going to sit here and crap talk the Second Amendment, you're not going to score well on the Patriot Nurse scorecard. Not that anybody cares, but just saying here that I'm not a mindless Trump bot. But if the commander-in-chief calls for the militia, secondary to being unlawfully deposed from his duly elected office, that's a problem, and I could see a civil war happening in that case. But what I think is more likely here is that we're going to see balkanization, and not balkanization strictly along state lines, not a war between the states, 1861, Southern War for Independence. I don't see it happening quite that way in that organized fashion. What I see happening is much more local resistance, a la Shays Rebellion. But folks, this is what I think is inevitably coming. And there's a way that these things have unfolded in the past, and it's probably going to be the way that they unfold in the future. When we look at the mistakes of the Roman Empire, okay, which we are very, very closely mirroring at this point. The Roman Empire kept expanding its territory more and more and more. It kept putting its soldiers and troops in different areas of the world to try and keep the peace and trying to encourage assimilation and the melting pot stuff. And ultimately it just didn't work, because what happened is they made a critical mistake, the same mistake that the Washington elite that try and, foist their will upon the rest of us in the country. The Roman Empire tried to do essentially lifestyle evangelism with the barbarians. The barbarians just didn't show up one day in Rome and overthrow them through superior military might. Oh, no. See, Rome encouraged that these people come in, and they thought that if they just showed them what it was like to be a Roman and showed them the Roman way, they would eventually see the error of their backwoods tribal ways, and that they would, come around to it. But they didn't. Okay, they didn't. And we're making that same mistake here, and we have been making it for some time. The immigration situation has destroyed our demographics. You can't have sudden shifts in populations without having massive political upheaval, and that's what we're facing. And we have wholesale imported the rest of the world's garbage. And please don't misunderstand me here. There are legitimate people whom I know who are immigrants who detest socialist democracies, who detest social welfare programs, because they know the eventual outcome. They know the end game of what all the goody giveaways is, and it's slavery, and it's servitude, and it's oppression, and it's gulags. So I'm not talking about those immigrants who come here who say, screw that line of logic. I want to live free. I don't want a government that's in my face. I want the smallest government possible. There are people like that, but they are the very, very few who are coming here. The vast majority of people who have been pouring into our borders over the past decades have been big government lovers, Democrat voters. Not to say that the Republicans are the party of God, clearly, but let's put it this way, okay? They don't value a constitutional republic form of government. They have no love for the founding fathers. They have nothing culturally in common with the founding fathers. They are here to get their meal ticket punched while you and I work for them. And I'm saying this because Rome tried to do this stuff, folks. It got so crazy during the sunset of the Roman Empire that it became more profitable for people to sit at home and collect their basically social welfare, until the point where there had to be laws passed in Rome requiring that if you had a job, you had to keep it, so they could keep the hamster going on the wheel for as long as possible. This is happening now. Oh, itchy nose. This is happening now. And instead of it being the Imperial Roman, Senate, now we've got the Beltway, we've got Washington, we've got all their little spy agencies. They know this stuff is coming. They know there's domestic upheaval coming, not just because of the unchecked, unfettered immigration and the massive societal change that it's brought, but also technology, of course. My generation, the 30-somethings, we have seen an unimaginable level of societal and social change in our lifetime that has been, I would submit, a far and away net negative. In addition to that, we have our native-born socialist element and our native-born dirtbag element, which historically has always been concentrated in the cities. Always been concentrated in the cities. And now, because the immigration has displaced and priced them out of cheap housing in the cities, they're sprawling out not only to the suburbs, but then in some cases, for instance, when you look at the Northeast, people live their entire lives, in many cases, and then vote a horrible way, and then come and neo-carpetbag style infect the South, bring all of their troubles with them, and then try and tell us that we're the screwed up ones. So the reason I'm pointing this out here is not to say that every single person who lives in New York or the Atlantic Northeast coast, that they are terrible. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that at this point, we have so much movement of people. We have so much massive transit of horrible ideas with serious, deathly ramifications, that this thing is not going to stay together much longer, okay? And the powers that be know this. The people who, for instance, the companies that feed our data, our metadata to the NSA and all this other stuff, they've collated this stuff. They know this stuff is coming. They know the next movement at this point is a tax revolt. They know it's coming, okay? That's why they're trying to posture and scare people. And oh, by the way, they're making changes in the Beltway. For those of you who are financial advisors, you'll know this. They're making changes to the way that you can use and draw down your retirement accounts. And they're expanding the way in which they're going to tax things. So they know this stuff is coming because they're recognizing that the next step is very similar to Shays' Rebellion. And in Shays' Rebellion, essentially what happens is you have people who are dutifully proven American citizens at this point, or in this case, Massachusetts, citizens of the colony state of Massachusetts, who basically said, you know what? I don't give a crap that you were irresponsible in paying your debt down. You're not going to come and seize our stuff, and we're going to fight you. So that's the next move. Shays' Rebellion breaking out, I think, all over the country is the next move. And what that means is that this isn't going to be this next civil war that's coming. I don't see it being organized along state boundary lines as the war between the states, War for Southern Independence, was in 1861. I don't see that that's going to be the case at all. I see it'll be much more like massive outbreaks of Shays' Rebellion here, 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 and here. And I think that it'll start with local sheriffs. For instance, in places like Illinois, where you've got places in central and downstate Illinois who know that their rights are being violated by Cook County and surrounding areas, Chirac, and they don't have a reasonable hope and expectation of a successful and lawful secession from the state, because in order for part of a state to secede from the state itself, you have to have the 2/3 majority and all this other stuff. They know it's not going to work. They know Chicago is not going to let them go. They know the cities are not going to let them go. The cities are where people have mouths to feed and hands out and hands in the pockets of people in the outside areas, in the rural areas. So what's going to end up happening is that it's going to look like this sort of checkerboard of a country. I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy about suffering for people. But the world in which I live is not based upon Disney or fairy tales. I live in a world based on probability, not possibility. We all do. When you are making your grocery list, you're like, okay, well, I think I'm probably going to make this meal tomorrow, so I'm probably going to need this. Not, well, there's a possibility that I might change in the middle of the field. I might say, I want to grill hamburgers instead of making a souffle or something. We don't deal in a world of possibility. We live, make choices, and make practical decisions for our life based on probability. So the probability that I'm seeing is that this nation is not going to be together much longer in its current configuration. I don't see how it can function. And what is deeply troubling to me, gravely troubling to me, is that because of the level of movement and transit possible, areas of the country that were historically strong in conservative, family-oriented, historically literate ways of living, they are being infected wholesale by other parts of the country who have demonstrated that their constituents have an anti-constitutional, anti-republic viewpoint and way of life. And they feel that it is their bound duty to be able to screw up one place and then move another, and then expect the same programs, services, and entitlements that led to their needing to evacuate in the first place, and they want to reestablish it. Native Floridians can probably understand where I'm coming from, and also y'all who are living in Texas right now, being invaded from all sides, and Native Arizonians. Like, need I go on? How many places in the country have been infected and destroyed by these refugees who created the crap hole, which they fled, and they want to do the same thing again? You can't keep this up, okay? Human beings have a breaking point. Regardless of how much Netflix and tech and people have a conscience, okay? People have a conscience. Hopefully, some people. And it's going to get to the point, I think, where when this next round of Democrats get in office, I don't anticipate any sweeping Republican victory. I really don't. And would you really want one in the first place, given what the last 4 years has been like? I know that under Barack Obama, there was no gun control. Not saying he wouldn't have wanted to, but people were at least united around the possibility that maybe this guy wants to do it, we don't want it to happen. But if a Republican's in office, let's just sit back, shove our face full of food, and watch SEC football. Life's good. No, I don't have any confidence at this point that the people in the Beltway and the idiots sent there from their constituencies represent me, my needs, my wants, and my rights in any way, shape, or form. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure y'all are watching me, who feel the same way. You're tired of this. You're tired of these people who sit in their little fiefdom up there in the Beltway or in your capital city, and who think that they're going to dictate to you and me how we're going to live. And we're going to give them X number percentage of our income. So that way they can go and spend it on how many wars, which have yielded what exactly? How many more entitlement programs, which have yielded what? Oh, more voters for the same. The invasion of foreign ideologies. The federal government at this point is hemorrhaging legitimacy. They know it. They know the next move is a tax revolt. They know the next move is a breakout of essentially constitutionally informed rebellion in the rural areas. And that's what I think they're scared about, because they know that unless they've got the tech to control this stuff, it's going to get way past them. If you have not covered your bases and prioritized proficiency with self-defense, not only self-defense, but just being able to produce your own food, nobody's going to be 100%, okay? That's a pipe dream. But you can make a dent in it. You need to. From a spiritual standpoint, and I know I don't really talk about this a lot, but I think we're going to have to, okay? Because this stuff that we're facing has its origin, its power, its strength, and its momentum in the spirit realm first, okay? It's like watching a puppet show. The puppet ain't the one doing the movement. It's strings getting pulled that are out of the viewing screen, right? The things that we are warring against have their spiritual strength from a very, very dark element of this universe. And in order for us to oppose them, we have to be together, united, and I would submit to you, interceding regularly with people who are like-minded. Intercession, prayer, being sensitive to things. Because folks, there are signs and wonders that are manifesting right now in the heavens. And all this has been talked about before, in the scriptures. And I think that we need to prepare, okay? But this preparation is multifaceted. And I hear people say in the body of believers, I hear people say that, the Lord's we're going to be raptured out, or we're going to be protected from this. I don't read that anywhere in scripture. I'm not going to sit here and have a theological pissing contest, but I don't see anywhere in scripture that we are guaranteed not to suffer, and that we're guaranteed that everything's going to be hunky-dory, okay? If anything, when I look at the foundation of scriptures, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, I see the bitter waters, which is the trial of the adulterous bride, and also the trial of the children of Israel when they bow down and worship the golden calf. We have been worshiping at the altar of the self in this country for a very long time, and at the altar of big government. Big government can do no wrong. They wouldn't do that to us. We're going to have to we're going to have to wake up and be sensitive. Okay, there's a lot, and intuitively, you know this stuff is going on. You know that there's something wrong in your spirit when you're encountering these different things. There's a reason why your chest feels heavy when you go into these big cities. There's a reason why you have a righteous anger when you see this nonsense on the news, or you read it in the papers, or you read it in your media outlets. There's a reason why you feel in your kishkas. There's your word, your Yiddish word. You know, when you feel it in your kishkas, when you feel it in your guts, like the central part of you, that this is wrong, and you know you're not going to stand for it, and you just don't know what to do, that's in your spirit. And that's the time for intercession, and that's the time for being together with people, okay? So I recommend being prepared, not just practically in the physical realm, knowing how to defend yourself, being intimately skilled and familiar with the art of self-defense, but also trying your best to prepare your own food, to be self-sufficient with your health. That's the big thing, okay? They have been setting up with the electronic medical record system for the collation of insane amounts of data on people, which then, by definition, becomes, therefore, potentially vulnerable to hacks or leaks. I anticipate that this is going to be the next area where people are going to see significant rights violations is in the medical industrial complex. And getting out of that and being self-sufficient with your health is going to be very critical, I think. I don't want anything to do with these people. I don't want any interaction whatsoever with these people. They have shown me that they have complete, utter contempt and disdain for the Constitution. I don't want anything to do with them. It's time to be gathering together with our like-minded people and be prepared. I don't think that it's going to be a nice, pretty clean-cut civil war, if that can be said, in geographical terms, and that it'll be like you're reading it from a newspaper. We are living history right now. The balkanization and breakouts of things similar to Shays Rebellion, I think, are probably the most common. That's what I have for y'all today. Hope it was helpful for you. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you'll subscribe to me here on YouTube. You can also support me on Patreon and Subscribestar, as well as cryptocurrency. Friends, we need to be ready. It is a very, very dangerous time right now. If you're doing your due diligence, you're going to be focused on being prepared. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later.